Hey, hi. Good.
Hey, Sudhakar.
Hi. Yes. So the Bitcoin halving is just 8 days away, and yeah, how excited are you? Uh, how many people are joining us? Just a second. Okay. So we have a special guest with us now tonight, who has several years of experience building Web3, including Flint and LogX, and he has a very strong knowledge about Bitcoin and its impact in general. So we'll also get some interesting insights from him. As a trader or as a Bitcoin holder, or or a novice about the Web3. So let's welcome Mr. Akshit Bordia, co-founder of LogX. LogX is basically a decentralized exchange, obviously, futures exchange. And hi, good evening, Akshit. How are you?
I'm doing well. First of all, thanks for inviting me today on this conversation. I think it's always a joy to talk about Bitcoin because the more we sort of diverge from the core of Bitcoin, which is essentially either go to Ethereum, Solana, and whatnot,
Right.
you sort of realize where we all started. So I think like it's always good to just go back to the roots and just talk about the fundamentals.
Right. And congratulations on the recent funding at LogX.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think the team in general has been working very, very hard. Been putting a lot of effort, at least over the last like 5, 6 months, and now everything is just coming together. So, yeah, in general, happy times. Markets have been kind for us. The team has been working hard, and thankfully, everything is just slowly building up and paying off in the due course.
Awesome. Although I just mentioned a bit about you, if you cannot tell the audience more about you, what you do, and something about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like probably I'll start back from like 6 years back or 7 years back, right? I still remember I used to, the first thing I sort of heard about crypto in general was Bitcoin, just like everybody else. And
Yes.
then I remember I used to like started trading crypto on the sidelines. But the most interesting thing that happened 7 years back is that I had access to a lot of GTX 1080 cards, which were like bunch of these new gen graphic cards, which were the most powerful ones, $2,000 per card, right? And I had access to these cards through a AI ML lab, or essentially an AI lab which I used to work in back in 2016, 17. And what I used to do was I used to run a lot of like this in a hideous way. Uh,
Okay.
Now I can share that, but I used to run a lot of mining activities on that. I used to mine, of course, Bitcoin and a bunch of other things. I know under the radar, but that's how a lot of undergrads, a lot of university people sort of get their hands on to mining and stuff. And from there, I think like standing today, it's been what like 6 or like 5.5 odd years. I've been building financial products, essentially built the first monetization line for the largest fintech or like the second largest fintech in India called as Cred. And then from there started to build a Flint. Of course, we raised around like what $6.5 million for that. And then from Flint, we transitioned to this latest product of ours, which is called LogX, which is a perp dex. It's technically right now the leading perp dex on upcoming EVM L2s. That means we're live on 9 EVM ecosystems. The product has run close to almost, I think today it should hit $10 billion of trading volume.
Oh
So it's,
wow.
it's, it's
I
it's
think
a
a month ago it was around 5 or 6 billion, right?
yeah. The things are like sort of growing very, very fast. And as I said, markets are very kind. We are putting our level best, and that's why metrics are like sort of doubling every week or so, right? And that's why I think like today today or tomorrow we'll probably hit $10 billion maximum day after. So things are coming together. and consumers are liking our product, and in general, I think like that's a bit longish version of what I have been up to over the last 6 7 odd years.
Interesting, so interesting. So as you said, right, you also heard about Bitcoin at first and then started. If you can know, and after the ETF buzz, now Bitcoin halving is is buzzing in the industry, right, everywhere. So if you can tell the audience about what is Bitcoin halving and the general how it will affect the market and in general the ecosystem.
Sure. In fact, like I think let me answer it from a noob's perspective, right? Like someone who doesn't understand anything about crypto, right? Like, and let's sort of talk and like sort of bring that explanation forward. So fundamentally speaking, right, Bitcoin is a scarce asset. That means when Satoshi sort of wrote the white paper early on, almost a decade ago, the idea was very simple that Bitcoin is going to be the digital gold, where a lot of people are going to store value in the digital economy, and there are just going to be 21 million of these Bitcoins available in the market, right?
Right.
And the way halving works is that it's essentially a 4 year phenomena that comes in. So it came in like this year, there's halving, then it just happened like 4 years back, then it again happened 4 years back, and this is the fourth cycle, right?
Awesome.
And what technically happens at each halving cycle is that the entire supply that is out there, it's sort of a timestamp, it's sort of a stamp wherein we say that, hey, this is the change in supply of Bitcoin, and it has like sort of halved over the life cycle. Kind of like I think if you pick some of the mathematical equations, it's kind of like that the decay life, or there's the half life of sort of a substance that is hit. That's the best graph you can imagine in your mind. But what that technically means is that a just from a cultural perspective, and what impact does it have on the market, right? So a from a cultural perspective, what happens is that a lot of people have a lot of anticipation around Bitcoin halving, because as I
Right.
said, like this is the longest standing asset in crypto, and the longest standing asset in crypto has the longest reputation, and then this is the biggest sort of milestone for Bitcoin apart from major tech releases, that is like very very frequent and comes in every 4 years. So that's one. Second thing is, historically speaking, and that is where you would see Bitcoin was hovering around like what, 20, 22K, 25K, right? And now it is at like 70, 72K, sort of,
Nice. Yes.
sort of again oscillating between 60 to 72K, 75K, and then trying to, like a lot of people are saying like there's just going to be one inflection point and it's going to hit 100K or something like that, right?
Right.
But the point is that there's a lot of anticipation that is built around this. And in the past, if you look at the charts, right, as a trader, you would see around Bitcoin halving, there is a lot of such activity that sort of picks up around this halving event, purely because A, as I said, there's a lot of cultural impact of this in crypto.
Right.
People who have been there for a longer time period understand this. And B, from a, I would say, mindset perspective also, since crypto markets are, awareness based markets or attention based markets, Bitcoin also has a lot of attention. In fact, Bitcoin has been one of the best, if not the best, performing assets in this cycle, purely because of course, the ETF, and then multiplied by the halving event that's going to follow. So yeah, that's sort of the
Also,
significance
the
of Bitcoin halving.
overall awareness around Bitcoin, I guess, right? Because
Yeah,
four
of
years
course, like
ago, it was not that, like like emerging countries and all those are now considering Bitcoin, and then people are also reading a lot of news about Bitcoin. So probably, yeah. So as
yeah,
you
if
recently,
you look at like, no,
sorry,
I was just saying that if you look at like a lot of interesting markets like Hong Kong, or let's say Dubai and whatnot, a lot of sovereign funds are going to come and invest in Bitcoin, which fundamentally means, and of course, like the ETF is there, so almost everybody in the US, or every major party in the US is going to follow very, very soon if they haven't already onboarded, right?
right,
Which fundamentally means that now it's an asset that has been stamped by authorities left, right, and center across the globe as a I won't call it a safe asset, but as a accepted asset amongst the financial world. So I think like that for us, like fundamentally, as like as retail traders, as genuine Web3 consumers, is something which is huge. So I think like that has like very very large significance in the broader scheme of things.
So true. So as you mentioned, right, a lot of institutional investors are investing in Bitcoin through ETF and other means. So how do you see, like, after this halving, where it will go? Like, by like how many folds by the investment amount or something like that?
Uh, Actually, I want to take a very interesting example of Vanguard, right? And I don't think a lot of people know the Vanguard story very very well, but I'll just like sort of give a very quick recap of the Vanguard story, right? And essentially, what the Vanguard story is, the thesis that index funds are going to perform better than any other, actively managed fund, which now Warren Buffett has sort of said tons and tons of times publicly, right?
Right.
And the thesis is very, very simple, that just because you're doing so many movements in market, the fees itself is like way too much and a bunch of other things and blah, 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 right? But the core of it is, for the first 10 to 15 years, if you look at the projections and the numbers and AUM or assets under management of Vanguard, they did not grow by a large margin.
Okay.
Only in the 1990s or 1995s or 2000s is when this concept really picked up, because by this time market had data for different decades under their belt. Even though this company and this concept was started uh, like 15 years back, it actually picked up like 10, 15 years later down the line, where they, like, of course, like till that point in time, Vanguard had built a lot of trust, a lot of ETF flows had come in, and now of course like they have like billions and billions and probably trillions of dollars of capital logged inside the sort of what I call as Web2 vaults, right? Now if you just zoom out and think about that, what fundamentally happened in this journey was, and what fundamentally is also happening with the Bitcoin journey, is that once the Bitcoin ETF stamp was put in on Bitcoin,
Right.
right? Every fund is coming in, and if you look at, let's say, the number of Bitcoin miners are mining versus the number of Bitcoins which are bought, which is essentially demand supply from a very, I would say, from a very large, from a very zoomed out perspective, is that the demand is much larger.
True.
What that also means is the cap for where Bitcoin can go from here is like technically uncapped,
Uncapped,
right?
right? Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because like the money outside of Bitcoin is huge. It's like Bitcoin is what, like $1.5 trillion dollars worth of asset,
Yeah.
but it can easily be a $10 trillion worth of asset, which means, of course, the price can be what, like 10x from here. Now, when will it become 10x? Is something which is like, again, we don't know. The horizon can be longer, shorter, depending upon the actual financial cycle. But just because the point that the gates have opened up, that fundamentally means, and the market has sort of set itself up for this growth over the long, like next 5 to 10 years.
10 years.
That fundamentally means this asset will appreciate over a period of time. So I think, like, for me, like as a holder of Bitcoin, as someone who is, to be honest, extremely bullish on Bitcoin, what I can say is that it's not a question of when this is going to happen, or it's not a question of if this is going to happen. It's a question of like what is the time cycle we are looking at. And I think when we again click deeper on this time cycle question, that the answer to this question is very, very simple. I think how many macro events are going to play out in the
Right.
next like 12 months, 18 months, which is like, of course, the Fed's cutting their rates, the US elections coming up, and a bunch of other things here and there. But yeah,
Also,
like
many
the core
countries are
point is the
coming
gates
up
have opened up.
with ETFs, right? For example, I think next week probably Hong Kong is coming up with their own ETFs. So, right, all those things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the more sort of these sort of gates open up, then it's just a matter of macro playing out. Like,
True.
think of it this way: the gate has to be opened up, and then there just needs to be a couple of macro events, and tons and tons of capital will just flush into Bitcoin, and of course, like, it will take the price up.
Looks pretty interesting. It's like we're at a, like at a point where it will just do a Jake off, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, like I want to mention this part. Of course, crypto always has been a risky asset class. Bitcoin, of course, can move up and down, and like invest at your own discretion. But at the core, I think, like, very, very fundamentally looking at this phenomena, the gates have opened up, and then the moment, let's say, a couple of macros play out, the price is just going to shoot up if things play out the way they're supposed to.
Right, as you just mentioned that no, it's very volatile and you have to play carefully, and you also and as a Pi42 you also cater to largely to like traders, right, and futures traders. So if you can know tell a couple of points that they should traders should know or keep in mind while trading, particularly at this stage where it might get very volatile, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like, to be honest, like, okay, I'll answer the question after the core question, right?
Okay,
Which is a like, of course, everybody knows they need to put in stop loss. Everybody knows they don't want that they should not trade their entire capital size. Everybody knows they have to take lesser leverage. But I'll sort of mention a very interesting phenomena that I have discovered from my research over the last like 6 7 months, specific to this cycle. This was
okay,
not there last cycle. It was not there even the cycle before that. And the learning here is like very simple, very straightforward. If you increase the amount of risk that you take in this cycle, it is not proportional to the amount of returns that you get. For example, Bitcoin in this cycle is like, of course, the easiest trade. Like, it has done what, like 3x. It can ideally do 4x, 5x, whatever, right? And
right.
of course, Bitcoin is the least risky asset amongst the all altcoins category,
Yeah,
or amongst all every other coin. But then if you look at altcoins, the risk is also higher, or drawdowns have also been higher, and then the percentage increase also has been lesser, leaving like a few Ethereum levered coins aside, right? So what I mean to say here is there are smarter ways to play the market, right? And even if only if you are sharp, only if you're like sort of very thoughtful, there are smarter ways to play the market. You're taking lesser amount of risk, and you're still exposed to higher amount of upside. I think like that's a question I like in this cycle that has like sort of stood out for me, that has worked for me on at least a like dozen of bets that I've placed and that have like sort of been multi-baggers, is that like sort of also think about what is the risk adjusted clear sort of outcome that you can sort of bet on, rather than just going down the risk curve and like sort of betting on every random coin. I know a bunch of people do meme coins and stuff.
right.
Maybe like that's not my thing. I appreciate people who are doing well on them, but I generally like peace of mind. I like quality of my sleep when I'm sleeping, and that's why I want to bet on things which a fundamentally are good, and b fundamentally the drawdown is sort of capped purely because of the quality of the potential of the project.
Probably people who do scalping, they probably focus more on meme coin. Uh, but yeah, I was about coming to that. So we recently seen that this graph of Solana ecosystem, like it's used like right after like Bitcoin or probably Ethereum, the Solana ecosystem is boosting up, and probably I think many of those ecosystem coins are meme coins. So any comments on that, like how to trade on those and how to keep a eye? Okay, this is a potential coins, so probably and how to find out those potential coins to trade.
All right. So, okay, fine. So this is the interesting part. In order for you to play the meme coin game, let's assume for a moment we're playing the meme coin game, right? Like, even though, for example, a lot of people
Traders
I
want
talk to,
profit, right? And meme coin is very risky, but again, the return is so high, right? So people
yeah, no,
can't
no, I totally, I
like,
totally get that. That's
like,
why I said, right? Like, if I'm gonna say a trader that, hey, like, don't take leverage, don't bet with all your capital, I would be lying, because the first 10x I made in my life was because where I betted 100% of my capital on a single token. So I totally understand where
that's
people are coming from, and it's really tough to beat that psychology. And winners are sort of made on like concentrated bets. So I understand that, but I think like let's assume for a moment. So of course, like everybody knows, you see a shiny coin, you see a good team, and you hop on them. So leaving all the basics aside, I think the trick in trading meme coins, and this is like by far the biggest trick that I've sort of figured out, is that a looking at FDV of the meme coin. If the FDV is like crazy high, you may want to double think. Of course, I'm not saying we should not invest, because like for example, coins like Pepe can go to like from 100 million to a billion, so there is still a 10x there, or even like from a billion to 2 billion, so there's still a 2x, 4x, whatever XYZ there, right? But you have to be like extremely careful, extremely careful about the FDV of the coin, that's fully diluted market cap. And B, you also have to know that once you make a profit, you exit. right? And this is the biggest mistake and the biggest learning that I had from the last cycle, and almost every large trader I know had from the last cycle. It's, you're not like, you're not smart. Like, think of it this way: in this cycle, making returns, at least 2x, 3x returns is the easy part. Like, almost a lot of decently smart, reasonably smart people are doing that. But what is extremely tough is that the moment you see those 3x, 4x, or whatever you think is your sort of like appetite of wealth, or what you believe is a home run or is a winning trade, it's important to just like stop there, take a moment, and just the moment you say that I want to exit, you just exit and you never look back. Because
Right.
in a lot of these meme coins, assume, let's say you entered early, assume you got everything right and you're right at 10x, and you believe that there's going to be another 10x. There may be another 10x. But what if you entered with, I don't know, like $1,000, and it has now become $10,000 and you're happy with it? Like this,
Right.
I'm just saying, like, don't always think about, hey, like this guy made 100x, 50x, whatever. That is the easiest way to lose wealth. The moment you make money, just walk away with it and just feel grateful about the opportunity that you got. That's it. Like, it's a very important, it's a very tough psychological
Controlling the
thing,
emotions.
but it is what it is. I think, like, the biggest thing, the biggest reason traders from last cycle are doing well in this cycle is that they know this trick. They know how the brain sort of like messes with the core psyche here, and then like they understand that if they don't walk away with those 3x, 4x, 5x, they may not even see the base capital back.
Even I heard from some of the bigger big traders that they also sometimes fall into this prey key, or they like what 2 3x, and then they hope for, okay, it might go for another 2 3x, right? And
Yeah,
on that journey they actually lose that entire money. So it's very
yeah.
risky, yeah. And you have to understand when to get out from that, to and to place another trade. Interesting, quite interesting. So okay. So okay, so countries like, it's just mentioned, we just discussed that countries like Hong Kong or Dubai, they are like very pro crypto, and Hong Kong is recently planning for a BTC ETF, right? And Japan is also exploring to invest in crypto through their uh, biggest fund, probably, government's pension fund, right? So what do you see? Like, will the Indian government will also take some positive actions at least in the segment?
All right. So I think like this is a question I know ever since my Flint days, when we started Flint, people have been asking, what do you think that where's the Indian regulation is gonna go? Where do you think things are gonna move? Right? I think maybe this is the first time it has actually hit me, and it has like genuinely hit me. I would say hard, right? Is that maybe it does not matter what individual governments are doing. Like, if you like just zoom out and think about the global nature of the markets, right? And every time, you go on a group, or you're like sort of invited on a group, invited to a conversation, and you see like someone is from Japan, someone is from Israel, someone is from Ukraine, like, and honestly, like, people are from all around the world. When you think about that and the way they are united, maybe this is the first time we probably do not need to think about nations. We probably need to think about all the positive things that are happening, at an infrastructure level, which has made the infrastructure so secure that certain governments are betting on Bitcoin very, very hard, right?
True.
And coming in, and we have to like sort of just think about that, and the core unity layer of over and above that, which is essentially the entire community built around Bitcoin, built around like everything that we have built so far over the next like over the last 10, 12 years, right? And in that particular journey, I now have sort of slightly started thinking specific geographies do not matter. What matters is, like, see, think of it this way: a
Okay.
country can ban Bitcoin, like country like sometimes like Russia did it, but if you just open up like stats for any sort of exchange, more than 30 to 40% users are Russians.
Chance.
So governments can sort of decide anything, but then people are like sovereign enough to take their own decisions, and I think that is what we want. That was the core idea of what we are building in the very first place. Let's bring people together. Let's build these online communities. Let's build these online sort of marketplaces, right? And then let's build over and above those online economic communities, and of course over and above that more utilitarian communities. So that's what my view now is, that of course it's awesome US approved the ETF. It's awesome Hong Kong government is supporting. Maybe Indian government is sort of thinking through this. They'll also have like very interesting plans down the line. But then the more we sort of hinge this on big authorities, the more we are sort of moving away from the core ethos of where it all started, which is like just a bunch of people across the globe sending each other pizzas and just growing on top of that core narrative, core thought.
So true. In my perspective, basically, if government brings this positive narrative around crypto, then probably more people, right, who are not into this crypto domain, right, probably beyond tier two or tier three, they might be interested in exploring this particular option as an investment. Uh, Probably,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And in fact, like I have a very sort of aggressive antithesis to this, which is I think at some point in time, the core way a government is united is ideology plus economics.
true.
At some point in time, these two things might get disintegrated, and economics by itself will become a self-governing government, which is essentially the economic value of crypto, which is potentially the actual worldwide bull case for crypto, which means everybody has moved on to this new accepted economic standard
Right.
and or share of value again amongst each other, that the economic sort of guarantee of a single individual government is not even valid anymore, or is not even like that powerful anymore. I think like of course not taking anything away from the government, the point I'm trying to drive here is there can be an alternate currency which is peer to peer, that grows over a large enough network, that that in itself becomes the government, or code in itself, technically it's code, right? So code in itself becomes the governing economic government.
Understood. So you recently mentioned the like how this decentralized infrastructure is so strong, right? So robust, the government also, several governments are also believing in it, right? So what are the other developments in the ecosystem happening because of that? The overall ecosystem will go stronger or go robust, basically.
I think like a couple of things. In this cycle, and this is like of course, we can say tech has improved. We can say market has matured. A lot of bad actors have moved out. We can say like n number of things. Governments are also coming in. Institutions are taking positive views. So all those are basics, right? But the genuine shift that I see right now, which is what makes me 100x, if not like not 2x, not 5x, not 10x bullish, but 100x bullish now on crypto or on Web3, is that if the quality of builders that I'm meeting, the quality of other sort of founders, other sort of teams that I'm meeting now is so superior than the quality of teams we had like 3 years back.
3 years back for
And
this.
and and, and because of that, so many new exciting ideas are coming up, so many new risk adjusted ideas are coming up, and that is what progress is like any. I'll go back to my last example. There is this decentralized economy or decentralized community built on a shared economic value system, and then on top of it smart people are coming in to build stuff, and that was the genesis of, I don't know, any sort of civilization like years and years or thousands of years back. Like if you just pick any civilization, that is how they had shared economic resources, and then smart people came in, built different utilities, and then that is how this entire system was born out of, right? So this makes me actually like extremely bullish on crypto, because the quality of people building now are like very good, very sharp. They understand it's not just about like going all in
Not
and
more
this
a
like.
hobby thing they're doing. It's pretty serious business, right?
Yeah. I think thinking has also improved. So I think that is the biggest lever. And then on top of it, there are a bunch of market macros also, because end of the day, of course, builders can build, but then market also has to align with them, right? And then bunch of market macros are lined up this year. Bitcoin ETF has already played out.
Right.
Bitcoin having a cultural event is gonna play out in like what 7 8 odd days. Then I think there is also a strong amount of news that of course the election is going to be very divided in the US, and it's going to be neck to neck, which means one party is going to be pro crypto, so that's also bring in a lot of new eyeballs to crypto. And then the fourth event in this year is essentially Fed cutting the repo rate by anywhere between 50 to 150 bips. Of course, like we know it has been delayed by a month or two right now, but we will see it. And the moment we see it, there's again going to be a flush of capital coming in. Of course, Bitcoin will be the biggest benefiter of that, in my view, right? So there are these bunch of macros that are going to play out this year, multiplied by these bunch of amazing builders, which is
Building.
just gonna like fuel everything up. That's what my view is over the next like 12 odd months.
Right. I think Bitcoin ETF recently launched, and I think it's crossed 200 billion in trading volume, right?
Yeah,
Recently. So it's
yeah.
like it's in a couple of months. So yeah. Uh,
It's insane, right? Like it's extremely insane. Like I still remember a couple of comments from a couple of fund managers, hedge fund managers. They were like, "We're just not gonna add Bitcoin early on because we believe like it's gonna get some traction, but it's not gonna be that popular." But like every record, every sort of projection from any financial analyst on the Wall Street have just gone
when
through the roof, and everybody just feels like, okay, fine, this thing is actually blowing up. I also want this on my portfolio.
so true, so true. So you also right, we just discussed okay how you to understand the fundamentals of any crypto before you trade, and then you go about it, and you don't generally promote meme coins. So what are the other altcoins and or blockchain projects that you are more excited about, and you also looking forward to invest or trade on those?
Got it. So I think like I'll just mention. So I believe like of course there's this investment thesis, and then there is this success or win rate that you have had in the past, right? And my personal biggest win rate in general has been on these upcoming layer twos, upcoming chains that are coming up, right? I think like that has been the biggest bet or biggest winning play for me in this cycle, right? And the learning I have from there is I've been since we've been building LogX and we've been talking to these multiple chains. So LogX is deployed on 9 different EVM ecosystems. We offer perp on like 9 of them. On 6 of them, we are market leaders in the perp category right now. So we do highest by volume on these chains, right? And when we started talking to these chains, working with these chains, you generally get a sense of how they operate, whose smartness is at X level and whose smartness is at Y level, right? And
Right.
then after that, it just becomes so easy. You just bet on the person who's the smartest, because like end of the day,
Right.
everybody has the same playing game. As I said, the macro is gonna play out. So just bet on the guy who's the smartest, and then things are gonna just make take care of itself. So I think that has been the bet. In fact, like smartest, and second, the teams that move fast. I think in crypto there is immense amount of advantage if you move fast. That is what has benefited us at LogX. That is what has benefited at least 5 chains I can just name right off the bat. So yeah, that's my simple framework. Bet on people who are like the fastest and the smartest, and then everything else will
But
just
our
and
trader
just take
friends,
care of
they
the
don't
macro.
have, but our traders friend, right? They don't have this particular opportunity that you have, right? So any
Uh,
particular, yeah, good
Yeah,
for them.
I think okay. So recently, I've also been spending a lot of time on this. So this is the alpha, and I think like since a lot of people have
So need
stayed
to
till this point,
right, yeah.
since a lot of people have stayed to the till this point, I can share this very generously now, right? And this is where like at least I've spent a lot of my trader mind sort of like figuring out what do I bet on next. I genuinely believe a bunch of Bitcoin layer twos are gonna come up, which are already popping up left, right, and center. In fact, like I know at least like 15, 20 of them have been speaking to at least like 15, 20 of these layer two Bitcoin layer two chains, right? And because of that, Bitcoin, which was an asset which was sitting idle with a lot of miners, a lot of whales and whatnot, just gonna become liquid. Just imagine Ethereum has like X amount of market cap, and then on layer two's liquid market cap is like 20%, 25% of that. What
Right.
if this 20-25% of Bitcoin market caps comes into the circulation?
To the market.
So if I were new to the cycle right now trying to make money, my personal bet, and again, of course, I'm not like probably the best trader in the world, but I just like to make like 2x, 3x, 5x, just modest returns for let's say the amount of knowledge I have. And in that particular cycle, I am personally investing my time on how the Bitcoin DeFi ecosystem is evolving. Of course, there are going to be a bunch of scams there. There are going to be a bunch of wrongdoings there. But at the core, that is where like money is made, where new capital is coming in. That's the fundamental logic. And new capital is for sure gonna come in these new Bitcoin layer twos. So these are like, if you just want to watch your computer, just wish that you get a great opportunity to make money. I would say just very very closely look at the projects coming up, chains coming up on the Bitcoin ecosystem.
If you can name a couple of prominent Bitcoin layer two
Uh, So,
programs.
for example, Stacks is going to push out the Nakamoto update on around Bitcoin halving. So Stacks is like an interesting one. In fact, like I invested in Stacks when Bitcoin was just started rallying. Bitcoin just started rallying, right? And of course, like Stacks was the best beta there because they were the team which were the farthest in building a proper Bitcoin layer two. And of course, like Stacks has been a good levered bet for Bitcoin, right? So that's one. Second is I think a couple of teams, for example, it's Merlin, Bob, Botanics. These are very very interesting Bitcoin layer two chains that are coming up. Of course, ordinals and runes are there, but as I said, like they're relatively risky in nature. But again, like someone who's like smart enough, maybe they have more time to spend.
Yeah.
For them, it might be a good bet. In fact, like Rune Stone, I'm looking very, very closely at Rune Stone also right now, purely because I think they're going to launch something big at Bitcoin halving. I don't know what it is, but it just feels like they're going to do something big. So that's also there. But yeah, like in general, I would just say whatever you can get your hands on, just like do as much research as possible on the Bitcoin ecosystem. Tons and tons of new capital is going to flow in. And whenever new capital flows in, there are at least a few billion-dollar projects that are built out within a matter of weeks.
So, guys, I would like to plug in here. You can trade stacks on 542.
Oh,
With
nice.
average. So, yeah, you can definitely explore it out. With, of course, you're not doing with your own research, not ours. And okay, this is quite interesting. Information you shared that okay, Bitcoin layer twos are coming, and that could be a next big thing, particular for this cycle. Uh, Interesting. So, any additional, like tips or fundamental things that you want to share with the traders alongside this? Basically, they understand. Okay, that there is technical analysis. You understand, right? That, right? You just mentioned it, right? You have to understand the project, how they're doing, and what the project's coming up in their network and everything. But beyond that, if they want to, do, and for example, traders like some fresher traders, right? For example. If they're not getting much time to do their own research, and they were really relying on some YouTubers to understand the technical analysis. So but beyond that, what they should do to to protect their money, to bet like safe.
Yeah, I think like the number one tool there is find a way to build your natural intuition, and more often than not, your natural intuition never fails. It's like I know like the world has moved into a direction where you need charts for everything, you
Data.
need charts for everything, you need data for everything, you need logic for everything. Of course, like all that is important. I'm not like taking the credit away from these new data people altogether, but at the core, I think in crypto, what matters more than anything else, what matters more than any of the random number stuff that you can do in life, is that does the concept click? Because by pressure, like fundamentally, why do things go up in crypto? They go up because more people are buying in, right?
Right.
And buy pressure in crypto is strongly determined by how people feel about that project, how smart people feel, how smart money feels about that project, because otherwise they're not going to buy it.
So
Which means if things are driven by feelings, your biggest bet is to, tune your feeling to that feeling which sort of a smart person has, which means you have to polish your intuition much more than your data insights, much more than any data can be like a checker. Data can never be a maker. I think like that's the biggest thing I would just like sort of
because you
share. Or
recently mentioned, right, ki, a lot of after the ETF, a lot of finalists said that okay, we just have to stay and watch. It won't perform right away, right? And Bitcoin ETF proved them wrong. So that's all right.
yeah, yeah. So I think like that's the most important part, and of course, as I said, like the data also I shared, like a lot of money is flowing into Bitcoin, DeFi, and whatnot. That's also data. But end of the day, who do you bet on? if you want to, if you wish to, right? That has to come from your intuition, your sort of like just read everything and let your heart tell you what makes sense, and then validate by data if you want to. But then yeah, like the biggest edge for a trader in crypto in my view is the trader's intuition, not numbers.
So true. So you shared, thank you. You shared a lot of insights and good information. So I'm just a little bit too curious to understand. Okay, so okay, how did you know enter into the world of crypto? Like you mentioned, right? In your college time, probably you got to know about crypto and all that. But how you just got to know about those because in 2016, 15, 16, it was very niche, I would say, right? I think in 17 or 18 it got exploded in India, but prior to that it was very kind of niche. So how you got to know and how you thought of okay, exploring this particular domain?
Yeah, I think like to be honest, from just like everybody else, I had this humble aspiration to make a lot of money,
Right.
and I had like surprisingly, I think back in 2016 or something, I won like I had $1,000 to just gamble upon purely because I just won. Like there was a startup attempt that I did, and then it just came in as a reward for that. And I think when I had those $1,000, my bet was simple: how do I make it 10? Right? Like, what's the play? What do I do with this money? Like, I don't want to do an FD out of this. I don't want to, put it in savings bank. It's just like this wouldn't make any sense if I do it. So I said, let's figure out a platform. Let's start gambling. Like honestly, I started gambling with that money, and then every few days, I sort of, like I started becoming this junkie trader who used to, be up at US time zones when the market opened up in US, at least for the stock side of things, because that is where the maximum movement happens.
Right.
US markets, Japan markets, China markets. I used to be up like almost. I used to be available like 20 hours a day. Of course, I used to sleep 2 hours, but then I used
No.
to be available all the time so that I can click that button on the screen when the market moves up or down, so that I can make my profit out of it, right? And I think the best thing that happened was that there was this one day I had set up a lot of bots that would scrape a lot of data from Twitter, right?
Hmm.
And then I got a lot of points, a lot of bot data that hey, Ripple is gonna move up, and I
Yeah.
remember I had like entire money I had made till then. I decided to take this sharp bet, and Ripple was trading around like what 14, 15, 16 cents, right? And I
Okay.
said, let me just put all my money into Ripple, and it was like what around 10:30 in the night in India, and I sort of placed that trade. I slept, and that day, unfortunately or fortunately, I slept for longer. So I woke up at 5:30 a.m. in the morning next day, and then from 14 cents, Ripple was at $2, and then in front of my eyes the money became 15x, and
Right.
then in an hour or two I remember like it went to $2.5 or something, and then I sold it around like $2ish or whatever, right? But the point I'm trying to drive here is, and of course that funded a lot of my experiments in life. I traveled to China, I traveled to a bunch of places to learn from other entrepreneurs back in 2018, 2019, 2020. And but coming back to the core point, I think the biggest learning there, the biggest thought process there was that this there is something interesting in this. So and after that it was a rabbit hole, right? Like once you get into it, you just cannot get out.
Right. So true. Thank you so much for sharing, such insights. Okay, it's now on to the audience. If you have any questions, you can ask Akshit. We would be happy to answer. Otherwise, you can close. Also, I would also wish you all the best for the TG when we are launching the LogX token.
uh, Thank you so much. First of all, I think, as I said, a lot of hard work is now finally coming together. Of course, TG is just one step in the journey. There are like at least 100 more steps to take to build the best pop decentralized pop platform out there in the market. But ideally, we're trying to do it as early as possible, right? Of course, there are a bunch of things like exchanges, Of course, a lot of partners here and there. You have to like do a bunch of audits as well for the staking module. So we're doing all of that, but then fundamentally we're like very closer, and I think yeah, like we would be sort of sharing a date with the community very very soon.
Someone is asking a question. What tools you use for trading? If you understood it.
As I said, right, of course, like all the standard tools are there. Like you see the trading view charts, you use a bunch of moving averages and whatnot. But at the core, my biggest tool is how educated I am on the team and the progress of the project and the market. That is what I meant when I said intuition, right? For example, as I said on stacks, that was the most forward team when I sort of decided to take a bet on them. And then, of course, Bitcoin was moving, so that was the macro in the market. And then, of course, when I saw the stacks, sort of entire code base, website, documents, and everything, I believe like this is like a pretty smart team. And they're of course like well funded and all those basics are also there. But at the core, I think my tool, of course, is not the standard tools a lot of traders use. My tools are actually this genuine research out of curiosity for projects multiplied by macro and then taking a concentrated bet on them.
It's quite an interesting perspective. Is it also?
You can say it is fundamental analysis, but I would also say that sometimes like we sort of merge. Okay, the, the the thought process of fundamental analysis comes from TradFi. And in TradFi, what do we say when we do fundamental analysis? We say that, hey, this is the PNL of the company. It's going to grow by 10% CAGR. And then we do some sort of math model on top of it, which we believe is true. And then we do the fundamental analysis, right? I think let's just go one more level deeper, and let's understand what do people, where is that revenue growth coming from. So let's pick this company called as I don't know, but there's this drink that is coming, it's called Sting Energy in India, right? And this product is growing like wildfire because it's the cheapest and of course decent quality energy drink available in India, which was Red Bull before, which was expensive, right?
Right.
And if you just go by that core insight, that's why I'm stressing on the point, build your intuition, is that it's not that you need to understand the FMCG market very well. You need to understand sort of the basics or the fundamentals of the market. This is the PNL, this is the ratio, whatever. Well, no, you don't need to do that. You just need to understand, boss, I just tasted a Sting Energy drink yesterday. It's as good as Red Bull. It's cheaper, and all my friends are drinking it. The company is gonna do well.
And it's widely
That's what I'm
sponsored.
trying to say, right? That's what I'm just go to the very basics of the logic, and then I think then take a bet from there. That is bound to be much more successful than anything else, at least in my view in crypto. Because honestly, there are no financial models here. Like if you're looking for one, then maybe you're like at least 5 years early in the journey.
So true. Uh, okay, no more questions, I guess. Thank you, Akshit. It's already also quite late. We can close this.
Yeah,
Thank you so
thank you
much
so much.
for
And thank
actually.
you everyone for joining in today. It's always a pleasure to talk about the early days of the journey.
Thank you again. Good night, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, bye bye. Cheers.